Hi everybody, this is Frank for Inquisitive Interludes. We are here to recap and see what's happening in the Kingmaker Campaign. Let's get down to the highlights and other campaign related stuff. But first, I would like to invite you to like, follow, subscribe our YouTube channel and Twitch down below in the comments. In Chapter 1 of our Kingmaker Campaign, A Call for Heroes. Heroes gather, invited at Lady Gemandi's Outdoors banquet, and hoping to secure charters to explore the stolen lands and establish their own kingdoms. In the night, a scream awoke them, discovering mercenaries from the Black Tier slaughtering guests. Fighting their way through the manor, the adventurers saved lives and secured the East Wing. Once the manor was safe, Lady Aldari rewarded their bravery by granting them a charter to venture into the stolen lands. So tonight I'm joined by two amazing people. Let's introduce them. Let's go with you, Khan. Tell me a bit more about you.
So, yeah, I'm Khan. I play Lucian Aldoy, and I handle the channel moderating on the Twitch and YouTube, as well as the Discord.
Alright, that's great. And what about you, Phil? We're joined here tonight by the amazing DM, Phil.
Hey, my name's Phil. I am, as Frank just said, I am the Dungeon Master for the Kingmaker and Critcrafters right now. I'm also taking care of the whole technical side of the filming and so forth, so that means whatever you see and looks weird and so forth, that's my fault, and I am to blame. So that's pretty much what there's to say about me.
Perfect. Now let's get up with our first topic of the night. Foundry VTT. Phil, explain to us why. Why is it the one you pick?
While playing a lot online, I've tried many VTTs that there are. Fantasy Grounds, I've tried Owlbear Rodeo, I've tried Roll20. Foundry was pretty much the latest one I had purchased, and I attempted to try. One thing that charmed me right away was pretty much like the powerful engine, kind of like similar to Fantasy Grounds, but with flexibility that was unparalleled anywhere else with the modules and everything that you can have. So yeah, it's pretty much why I decided like right off to go with Foundry. Also, they offered Paizo actually had official materials, so. Whenever you get Foundry, you get everything for Pathfinder 2nd Edition already wrapped up. You don't need to pay anything, and it's already integrated with it, which is amazing, because I was really worried about having to repay. So, for example, like in other VTTs, you need to purchase books separately in order to upload them. Everything was already included with Foundry. The only thing I needed to acquire was the Kingmaker Campaign, which they already have all set up with all of their stuff, the monsters and so forth already done. It was pretty much key in hand.
I see that, and with your answer, you kind of blew up my second question to compare them to other VTTs, but it's fine. Let's go with the likes or not. What's your favorite thing about this VTT model?
Well, I mean, the flexibility, as I said, with the modules is amazing. From a player side, I don't know if you can give us some input, Con, here, but like from a Dungeon Master side, it's flexible, like it's incredibly flexible, so it's great.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed how many modules are added onto it that you found, and how it's really changed and made it more fluid from just not needing to open the character sheet to roll attack or make action. It's very, nice. Makes it lots faster, smoother.
Yeah. It gave me the impression that it's like it's running with an assistant, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So that way, like, for example, I can concentrate on storytelling rather than, I need to keep tab of this and that. Like, they have, like, calendar integrated. They have, like, the day cycle, the tabs for the rolling tabs for the weather and stuff like that. It's pretty great. I'm really looking forward to getting into the more detailed stuff in the future chapters, so... That's pretty much like the flexibility of it is incredible. I know that Foundry is also coming up with a lot of new material. They have their own system called Embers that's coming up, and that's going to be probably another game changer. But in the VTT scene, I'm pretty sure like Foundry is right now my top one. So yeah.
Interesting. But what about the downsides? Surely there's some.
Honestly, compared to the other ones, I didn't find any. What I mean by that is there's no monthly subscription. You just pay once and it's yours. That's great, and it's cheaper than most other VTTs that I found. Like for example, I believe the ultimate license for Foundry for Fantasy Ground Unity is like $100 some. Foundry VTT is $50, key in hand. You pay it once, and you have access to all the updates. The only like downside from a technical standpoint I could say is that there's a lot of material produced by fans, right? The modules are not official things or are officially licensed or anything like that. So what that means is whenever there's an update, the modules might not be as updated as yet, so they might be creating conflict. You might be having a module that doesn't work with whatever you're having right now. So, like, for example, when I purchased it, we were just entering what is called version 12 for Foundry, and all of the modules that were there were only compatible with version 11 or less. So most of the modules that we're currently using we just recently started using because we're able to do it, but before that we couldn't. So that's probably the downside, I'd say.
Yeah, like we've had that one module to pop out stuff like the character sheet, and that has some issues with Foundry and certain like roles appearing, and that's a shame because I would love that extra space, but it's just not working. So
yeah, and also another thing that makes me think multiple modules do different things, but they don't interact with each other. So like we have one that tracks monsters like a bestiary, but it doesn't like track certain other things. So like the modules crowdfunded or rather created by the fans are not talking to each other. So it's a bit junky on that side, but everything else around it is so much better that, I mean, it's only small inconvenience in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, this is all fan-made stuff,
Absolutely.
So obviously it's going to have issues with each other.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, that sounds great. Now, let's change subject and go on to our friend Lucian Aldori. Khan, can you describe a bit more your character you're playing physically, what he's wearing?
Well, I mean, pretty simple. He likes to not wear armor. He's more closer to basic clothing. He likes to be very agile, move around a lot. Typically keeps his sword at his hip, a sheath, the typical stuff. He looks like he really keeps track of hair. He really puts a lot of emphasis on how he looks every day. That definitely shows.
I surely did felt it during the game.
Yeah, one thing I really liked in their game though is that I think in the first chapter we saw two versions of Lucian, one before the giant and one after the giant.
Yes, I recall that.
So what I mean is we saw a bit perhaps deeper into the character than just he's just a cocky guy. If that makes sense?
Yeah, I mean he is full of himself and sure of himself, but obviously he's going to be met with challenges that he can't face alone, and he's going to have to learn to accept.
Yeah, no, I see that. I understand that. Especially there's a whole lot. I like the fact that Lucian has, in my opinion at least, as a dungeon master, has two sides for him. So that's actually great, and it's great for storytelling for a purpose like that. I really appreciated the interaction that you had with that Lucian had with Nakri specifically, because it sounded as if the two characters can work off of each other, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I mean, we're both warrior types, and he's more of a serious one, while I'm more of a joker, and I think it really works.
Nice.
And can you tell us why did you pick that specific class, Con?
Well, this is my first time playing Pathfinder. I've looked at it before, and of all the classes that really spoke out to me, I chose it to get out of comfort zone, because I'm typically more of a rogue or more of a serious character.
Yeah, a gothic cleric type of person.
Exactly. And so I wanted to push myself out of a comfort zone and be more of is still serious, but more of like a happy-go-lucky type guy, and Swashbuckler just perfectly fit.
So you're using basically the class as a launch platform for role-playing.
Exactly.
That's nice. That's very cool.
Very cool indeed. Can we a little deeper into your story? Just a little bit. Just give the follower, the watchers.
The followers! I love that. Let's give the followers something to bite on.
I'm not exactly sure how much I should go in. There's obviously secrets that I want to be shown in-game and explored, and I hope they do get explored, but they might not. But, no, I definitely imagine, I'm trying to invoke this essence of a character that has had a story in his trying to get away from it, but still embraces that part of himself, if that makes sense.
It does. And also, like, another thing that's important to know about Lucian is that he's an Eldori. So, I mean, he was following Jamandi Eldori when she entered the room. She was pretty much introduced alongside her. And I feel that
officially Eldori by chapter 1.
Yeah, no, by chapter 1 he's not Eldori. By the beginning of chapter 2 he will be.
Yes, I'm hopeful that, I'm not sure if you want me to say this.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, yeah, I'm hopeful that during this mana attack proved himself worthy of the Eldori name.
Yeah, because basically, like, the Eldori Sword Lords is a school of sword fighting, and you're hopeful for a few months, years, or whatever until you've proven yourself sufficiently able in order to be recognized as an Eldori Sword Lord. So it's more of a, like, they want to be sure that you're not going to shame or put shame on the school name before you can call yourself a member of it. And they all fight with this kind of like, it's kind of like the mixture between a scimitar and a katana, if that makes sense. With a very, like, the hilt is kind of like more like that of a scimitar. And it's a sword that is iconic to the Sword Lords. No one else fights with it. It is by Pathfinder by Pathfinder rules, it's considered to be an advanced weapon, meaning that you need to have special training into doing that. And I do believe there are dedication for fighters and other classes to go into this path as a Sword Lord or an Eldori Sword Lord. So I believe that. Yeah, I mean, we're not saying we're not spoiling anything by saying that this is pretty much the path that Lucian puts himself on.
Yeah, and I mean they have these edicts, which I don't think I'll ever said in the books, but we have talked about them privately. And one of them was like, have grace in defeat and not have your spirit broken. And I think I really showed that with showed him living up to that edict by the Frost Giant. You know, he got himself beat down, and he still picked himself up and tried to move forwards.
I'm hoping that we're not going to lose the brash, not the brashfulness, but the like you know how like let's go forward, let's push, you know. And I'm curious to know how much that'll get the party in trouble.
Yeah, I'm curious about that too. The reason why he was so rushful with the mana was because he wanted to get. I was really hoping he'd get to like the dueling hall or wherever Jamandi was, and to be able to, like, quote unquote save her. To say, obviously he didn't think she was in danger, but he wanted to show off his skills in front of her in a more serious combat style than just training drills.
So flash news that, like, I mean, we can talk about these things because these are past chapters, but she was indeed not in danger at all.
Yeah, of course.
And basically the players would have made their way, because basically the players during the first chapter decided to stay in the main hall. They could have ventured on the west wing as well, and they would have eventually stumbled upon the dueling hall where she was, where the players would have faced a bunch of members of the Black Tears, while Jamandi Eldori basically duels 2 Frost Giants on her own.
I do think this is like maybe the perfect example of how Lucian's going to change the group. I think if I had not just rushed in and gotten myself, like, beaten up by this giant, we probably would have pushed forward. but because this cocky, this proud, bashful guy who didn't really struggle in combat up until this point just got himself beaten down, I think the rest of the party was like, oh, maybe we should wait.
No, yeah, I think it did have a little impact of like people saying like, well, you know, one of our fighters just almost got one-shotted, so let's take it slow. And I mean, like, there was also the fact that, let's say, for example, like the Amiri, Valerie, and Arim that you've encountered were all wounded, like severely wounded. I think it would have been a different story if they had not been so heavily wounded, if that makes sense. Like, for example, if Harim could have healed a bit more, if Valerie would have been, like, in armor and, like, it would have been a different story, but
yeah,
I stayed true to... I stayed true to what they wanted. Yeah.
Moving forward. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Side note, before we change subject, I just caught on that he is an Aldori and is related to Jamandi.
Well,
yeah.
That's
boy... Think of it like a noble house. You join into it. It's not that he's related to them by blood. It's that he's sworn into them, has taken their vassal.
Yeah, I think the way you're saying it is the best way. He's taken as a vassal. Is pretty much the best way.
Well, thank you for this precision. Now, what did you feel? Let's start with Phil. What did you feel that didn't work as well as you expected?
So on the DM side, there's multiple things that didn't go the way I wanted to go. So the first thing that went sideways is the first part of the game, basically the banquet itself. I think that the rules were probably not as clear as I hoped that they'd be, and Pathfinder is very, very, very elusive, let's say, in the way that they're describing a social encounter. It's pretty much like, oh, do however you feel that it should be going as, and so forth. And it was kind of like junky. So by turn 4, I decided to, you know what? Let's just drop that. Let's just try to move on, and because the players character had no bonding together yet. Which was kind of like, okay, this is going not well, and then the system was more like, well, you're all independently going around making allies, but who are you making them for? So
exactly, that's how I felt. Like,
yeah,
I wanted to have that moment of talking to Nakri and Gelati and all these other people, but the system really. I mean, you said it yourself. You have 6 hours to interact with other people. So you really just want to meet these strangers.
In retrospection, I feel that Kingmaker expects the party to be one unit at the beginning. They already know each other. They already know why they're there. If that makes sense, they're there to secure.
It did feel that way.
So, or the best way that they actually portrayed it is in the video game, because there's a video game adaptation of Kingmaker. Is that the player is only one person. The other people with you are all companions. But you can't really do that around a table with like 4 or 5 players, right? So yeah, it's like that for me went like not as good as I expected. There's also at one point, I believe, when Gromog, the ogre, like the mini is large but doesn't fit in doorways.
Yeah, I noticed that.
And that was weird. So it was kind of like junky. So I was like, okay, let's try and do that. And there's also, hopefully, I'm like, especially in that moment, there's so many NPCs that I need to like, follow and be sure that they're where they're supposed to be, and so forth, so on. I'm hoping that in future moments of the game, it's going to be easier, because it's more like there's all the other pieces of the story are a small compartment. So it's easier to just, and they're insular and they don't affect one another. It's more like, oh, players visit there, so this is what happens, rather than,
The intro was supposed to show us all these different NPCs, and now we're going to meet them in the world in their own little area instead of here's everyone at once. And I'm sure that was a lot to keep track of for you.
Yes, and I mean, I'm sorry. The problem is keeping track of a lot of things is not a problem. It was just so many information that needed to be kept, that I need to keep track of at the same time, that I'm sure I lost the ball on some of them. So there's like, fuck, I forgot that. This slipped, and so forth. So there's a lot of things that went like sideways.
It's fine. It didn't go.
And that's why. Well, I mean, any dungeon master worth their money is able to, just like gloss it over. Everything's fine. This is what was planned. But,
yeah, I mean, on my end as a player, I didn't really feel like you missed something that I felt like we should have known. But obviously, I don't know the module or the Pathfinder, Kingmaker at all.
It's more of a. I've watched a video recently of another dungeon master that was playing Tomb of Horrors, which is the most it's an unforgiving one shot. It's like this thing designed by Gary Gygax to challenge level 20 characters.
Yeah,
and I like the fact that the person, basically the dungeon master, basically went and basically was, I'm trying to run it as pure to the essence of what it is, right? And this is what I kind of want for Kingmaker. I want this to be as close as the intended quest and general idea of the campaign, rather than adding, because normally I had a few bits and pieces here and there. I want it to be as pure and as intended as it is to the original source material. So yeah.
And on your side, Con, as a player, any thing that you felt like slow the game or affect your gameplay?
Not necessarily. I've concerns with I mean, I remember at one point we were in this really dark hallway and there was an enemy hiding. Well, not even hiding. I think it was supposed to just be seen.
Yes.
But it was so dark in that room that I could not see it. And we killed everyone, and I was like, wait a minute, there's someone else. And I could not see it at all.
That's actually a Foundry problem, because there's for example, if your character can only see up to, so for example, if you have a torch that's lights, bright light 20 feet, dim light 40 feet, past that 40 feet, it's pitch black, right? And the designer of the map had not put any light source in that area, so that's why it was all dark. Right? But I had not seen that before having an actual player step in that hallway. Same thing for Gromwag, I think. He was large, so it was fine. But if you notice where you ganged up on him, he was basically halfway into darkness.
Yeah, and I noticed that, especially because I was trying to tumble through him, and I was at the I have to count these tiles and figure out how far I can go through, because it counts as difficult terrain.
Oh.
And I was just I have to guess, because I could not see past him, so I just had to hope that I was in a good place where I could get through. And obviously I failed, so it didn't matter.
Tumble through was also slightly misinterpreted the way we were acting it. Because I was, well, if a friend is in combat, you still need to tumble through. You don't.
Okay.
You can just pass through. That's just, while we're on the topic. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine.
Isn't that how we had it there?
No, because you were trying to tumble through in the Kree.
No, I was trying to tumble through the enemy.
Were you? Okay, well, I mean, sure, everything worked out. All by design, everything was fine. It worked as intended. Great.
Yeah, because there's no reason you should ever tumble through later, because tumble through makes the person that you tumble through have a debuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it was more of a, the way I was picturing it was, you're tumbling through an enemy space. But allies that are in combat, you also need to tumble through, because you're trying not to injure them too much. If that makes sense?
I think I do. Yeah.
But yeah, but no, the full rule is you can always pass in spaces occupied by allies.
Yeah, and going back to concerns about the system, I'm very excited to see how the sheathing and interacting with weapons and stuff works.
Oh yeah,
and I hope that we can keep track of that better, because
I want to shoot with my crossbow. It's not loaded. Oh hell!
And we're going to totally forget to put our weapons back into the sheath after combat.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's a nice option. Is it necessary that it is there? I don't think so. I
personally really like it, and also I have to say this because I'm being a bit selfish. the Aldori Duelist dedication, one of the like special feats I can take is when combat initiates, I can immediately draw my weapon for free.
Okay.
So if other people can do that anyways, then there's no point in me having that feat.
I understand that. So it's kind of like you have quick draw.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's cool. I didn't know that they had that eventually. But yes,
well, I have to take it. But
yeah, but I remember. I think View, Frank, your first action, I think, was, I want to take my crossbow and shoot. Okay, well, you don't have your crossbow. Okay, I'm taking my crossbow and I'm trying to shoot, and then it's telling me it's not loaded. So I'm gonna load it. Then you need to move to be able to see the target, and now you've unsheeted, you've loaded, and you've moved. That's all your 3 action. That's it.
And to be fair, I think it's fair to argue at a game start like this that crossbow, if it's not mid-combat, was probably reloaded during like the interval.
No, because crossbows don't stay loaded. You never have a crossbow loaded in your backpack, ever.
What, you don't want to walk around with a loaded gun?
A loaded gun is different. The reason for the crossbow is because basically you're putting pressure on the arch. You're putting pressure on the. It cannot be loaded, and I will die on that hill. Crossbows need to be unloaded at the end of combat.
That's fair. What about like shields? Because I know that you have to like raise shield.
Yes.
Is it just? I mean, it's still equipped.
Yes, shields can be equipped, but they can be sheeted. They don't need. So here's the thing: a shield does not give you its bonus until you spend an action to do it. Anyways, so even if you have your shield with you, unless you raise your shield, it doesn't do anything. You're still spending an action, so I think it's more forgivable than saying, you need to unsheet your shield, you need to raise your shield, especially since, so we're not playing a whole lot with that, but we're going to start playing a bit more with these exploration modes. The fighter have access to something called Defend, and if they are in Defend mode, if combat starts, they begin with their shield raised. So I think that's important to, so yes, shield's like sheeted, but I think it's more forgivable than a crossbow, and the reload aspect of a crossbow is super important, especially since it's a ranged weapon. B, very more powerful than a longbow or a short bow. So I think it's you're getting power with the exchange of it needs to be reloaded.
Yeah, and
go ahead, Con.
Okay, well, you brought up the point of we're going to try to use the exploration action more, and I'm looking forward to that. I think a lot of the issue is just getting used to Pathfinder, getting used to this Foundry that we're using.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to. I'm looking forward to having these exploration actions and people getting used to knowing, hey, I'm just always going to be using Defend, or I'm always going to be using Scat, stuff like that.
Absolutely. Thankfully, in the party sheet, I can always see what is on or not, so I can always apply it, and it's automatically applied at the beginning of combat. So it's great.
And now, let's move on to what worked better than you expected as a player, Con.
Well, honestly, the panache system for Swashbuckler with this Foundry was very nice. I have concerns with certain things, like flashy dodge, for instance. I have to remember to toggle it on and off constantly, or else I just always have a +2 to AC, which is huge. And then there's things like, if I dodge, then I have to gain panache, and it doesn't automatically do that. I have to push a button. And so I'm concerned about maybe losing that. But with how they've changed Swashbuckler and the modern core rule set change that they did recently, it's so much easier to gain panache. So I'm not really that concerned about if I accidentally forget to enable it, because I'll just be able to gain it pretty fast anyways.
Nice, good to know. Anything else you want to add, or I'll move on to Phil?
I think that's about it.
Perfect. Phil, what worked better than you expected?
Honestly, a lot of things worked better than I expected. Oh, baby wants attention. Sorry, I got my son here with me. Honestly, encounters were amazing. What I mean by that is, if you think back about it, the way we normally run encounters takes like so much setup and minutes and stuff like that. So what it means is that an encounter takes an actual like it takes a minute in game time, but is but takes like an hour of actual play. We did 1, 2, 3, 4 fights, I think, four big fights.
Basically 3.5.
I mean, okay, 3.5.
That last one didn't count.
But still, it's like 3 fights. It went super well, super fluid, amazing dynamics of the fight. And I think that this is one of the strengths for Foundry. It basically removes the chess play and makes combat a bit more chaotic because your turn comes up fast, right? The animations are amazing, and they had a whole lot of things. So when you're casting spells, when you're seeing somebody hit with something else, it's great. We have the pleasure of working with a module called Enhanced Targeting, which is part of, I believe, called Foundry Tool Belt. So before, like, without that modules, targeting and doing things is honestly a nightmare. And our fighting and combat would have been entirely different if it was not from that. But with that modules, it makes it so much better in the fights. The other thing that I think went well and amazing was all the inventory management. So, for example, and you can probably vouch for that, Frank, is when an enemy is defeated, goes down to the ground, a player can double-click and loot the body actually. Like if he has something on it special, the DM does. You don't need the intervention of the DM. The player can just, okay, you're taking your action to loot it. Go ahead and do it. And the DM just keeps his attention to the action of combat, while you, as a player, just filters and might be discovering stuff, might be having this mysterious letter that you just got, and you then at your own turn next time you can just, hey guys, I found this, without having had the DM basically saying, oh, you're discovering that. And sharing things among the party is great. Drag and dropping, I like the fact that, that is also a thing. I remember when I believe Lucian was injured. View had a few potions that were unidentified. He gave them to Gilali, not Gilali.
Yeah, Gilali.
Gilali. She identified them and then gave them to Lucian. But that was all done without the intervention of the DM, right? And I know it sounds weird, but because, around a table, that's easy to do without the DM. But in an actual VTT, it's normally more junky than that. It's like the DM normally has to move the stuff for the players. Identification is needs... Oh, no! He wants to identify things.
Totally that. And, I mean, even just simple things like, at the beginning, I didn't want the cleric to use all her healing so early. So I just sat down, I had a potion on my back from before we started, and I just bought that. And it was very fast, just click on it, use it, it's gone.
Yeah, I like that too.
Yeah, the inventory is pretty neat.
Yeah, we didn't use a whole lot of so there's other two very cool modules I can't wait to play. Is perception, which allows the key and hole. I think View you used it a bit. And the lock and key, which allows lock picking, set it up by the macro and already in game, so you don't need the DM to do any of the lock picks and stuff like that.
You've got that module, or maybe you don't. I know you were talking and testing about this module where we'd walk into a room, and if something's trying to hide, it would just automatically do a
Yes, so that's perception. It is on, so if anything, you would have seen it.
Okay, cool.
And that's it, folks, for tonight. Thank you for joining for Inquisitive Interlude. Don't forget before you leave to like, follow, and subscribe our Twitch and YouTube channel. And we'll be seeing you next time on Kingmaker, Wednesday, 16th of October at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Have a good night.